this time. My name's Scott Summers. I'm General Counsel with the Nebraska Department of Education, appointed by the Commissioner to conduct this morning's hearing, the subject of which is our proposed revisions to Title 92, Nebraska Administrative Code, Chapter 11, more informally known as NDE Rule 11, entitled Regulations for the Approval of Pre-Kindergarten Programs Established by School Boards or Educational Service Units, and for the issuance of Early Childhood Education Grants. The legal notice of the hearing was published in the Omaha World Herald on December 20th of 2017. We are located today in Lincoln, Nebraska, at the Nebraska State Office Building. We're in the Board of Education room, 6th floor, Nebraska Department of Education. Before we begin, real briefly, I'd like to read some guidelines for testimony this morning. The procedure today is, first of all, a Nebraska Department of Education staff member, Early Childhood Education Administrator Melody Hobson, will describe and explain the proposed revisions to Rule 11. And this will be followed by testimony from interested persons, if any wish to testify. Each person presenting written or oral testimony is requested to, 1, state a concise suggestion or recommendation of what action you would like the State Board of Education to take. 2, state the rationale or reasons for your recommendation. 3, you may reinforce, but please refrain from repeating previous testimony. Each person testifying is limited to 5 minutes. If additional time is absolutely necessary, I can grant a little bit of extra time. And at the conclusion of all testimony, Melody Hobson will again have the opportunity to respond to the testimony that's presented if there is any, and that will conclude the testimony. The testimony presented today is being recorded and videotaped, and that will be made available to the members of the State Board of Education at the time of the State Board considers adoption of the rule, which is at least proposed to be at their March 2nd, 2018 meeting. All written testimony needs to be submitted to me prior to the end of the day at 5 o'clock in order to be made part of this hearing. At this time, I'll go ahead and ask that Melody step forward and provide a description and explanation of the proposed revisions to Rule 11 on early childhood. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
For the record, I am Melody Hobson, and I'm the team leader for the Office of Early Childhood. And the summary of proposed changes for Rule 11. Clarifying language has been added for the following definitions: for center-based program, class, contact hours when used in conjunction with home-based programs, the definition of a home-based program, home visiting services, school year, in-home family support program, and pre-kindergarten program. Clarifying language has also been added for the following requirements: a program coordinator, so that it is in so that it matches Rule 10 requirements, participation and inclusion, home visits, program curriculum practices and assessment, teacher endorsements, staff development plan, background checks, first aid and CPR. New language has been added in the following areas. Language has been added that requires a birth certificate to be presented within 30 days of enrollment, to be in compliance with the Missing Children's Identification Act. Additional language for districts unable to meet required instructional hours because of inclement weather or illness. This allows a process by which the school districts can petition the board for approval. This also follows the Rule 10 requirements for school districts for those two specific areas. And added additional equivalencies for home visitors not meeting the Rule 11 12 semester hour requirement. It does increase the annual staff hours of development from 12 to 15 contact hours. And then an added background check requirement for home visitors, and then added language to more clearly define requirements of grant funding.
Okay. And appears you read from something. Is that something you can give to Brenda to
Yes.
We'll make it part of the board report for the
Yes.
report to the board, rather. Okay, thank you. You
Yes.
can give a copy to Brenda. At this time, we'd invite any persons present that wish to testify in any capacity regarding Rule 11 to come forward to where Melody just sat by the microphone. If you are testifying, I believe there should be a sign-up sheet if you would fill that out, and then please state and spell your name for us so we don't make a mistake and embarrass ourselves when we write up the hearing summary. Does anyone wish to testify? I see at least a couple people that aren't from the department. Anyone wish to testify? Neither of you guys are testifying. No testimony. Jay, does that still hold true?
Yep.
That still holds true. Okay. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I wasn't prepared to, but that's okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Amy Bornemeyer, AMY-BORNEMEIER, and I am a Vice President of Early Childhood Programs at Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. Specifically, I administer the Sixpence Early Learning Fund grants. I have several recommendations from the Sixpence Board of Trustees to the draft version, which was dated December 13th, 2017. So if there is a version since then, these recommendations are based on that version. Specifically on page 1001.02, scope and application of this rule, we would like to recommend that there is clarifying language added to differentiate the role of the schools or school districts or ESUs in their role of establishing a early childhood program in comparison to terms like operated and partnering with. A lot of school districts, ESUs, are partnering with community providers to operate either center-based or home-based programs, and there seems to be a lot of confusion about the applicability of Rule 11 when a school district is partnering with a early childhood program or to offer the early childhood program services. Specific to Sixpence, statute requires the Sixpence grants to be awarded to the school districts, and then they sometimes will partner with their local community providers to operate those services. Page 7004.05, fees. If allowed by statute, the board would like to advise request the avoidance of the use of the term sliding fee scale. Rather, the board would recommend the term or a term similar to capturing multiple sources of fee collection. We understand that when Rule 11 was first written, that sliding fee scale was, the intention was to allow for families of multiple abilities to pay for a program to not be excluded because of their inability to pay. However, that creates a problem for programs who accept child care subsidy, formerly known as Title 20. Whereas child care subsidy will only reimburse up to the lowest rate that is charged on that sliding fee scale, thereby creating a barrier for programs to receive maximum public funding while accommodating families' ability to pay with other funding sources, such as private scholarships. Page 15005.13, definition of Sixpence programs. The board would recommend adding language which clarifies that Rule 11 is not applicable to early childhood services partnered with or provided by school districts participating in or receiving a child care partnership grant. These are new grants that are only a couple years old, and the LB, I think it was regardless, legislation was created to allow sixpence funds to be used and for CCDF funds to be used specifically for school districts entering into partnerships with local community child care providers to enhance and improve the quality. We don't want any confusion over thinking that these programs would be required to follow Rule 11, which would make really difficult problems for the local community child care providers who are not certified teachers and would have a difficulty meeting other aspects of Rule 11, but mostly the teacher qualification. Page 17006.05A, the definition of home visiting specialist. The board would appreciate the inclusion of a bachelor's degree in the field of human services to be added to that, because with our home visiting specialists, many of them come with degrees that don't fall under those existing categories, and so by adding human services as a bachelor eligible qualifying bachelor's degree, that would help to capture those additional degrees. For ease of application, we would also like to see that home visitor qualification include human services as well, just to keep in line with the home visiting specialist degrees. And that is it for the recommendations. I did provide Melody with the recommendations earlier, but do you want a copy of it? I can either leave this copy or I can forward a.
Whichever you prefer. If you can leave that copy
Sure,
with us.
absolutely.
And you have another for yourself to keep for your own records. We'll take that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might note that in the back there are some additional considerations regarding the program report template, but I don't think that that's necessary to discuss now. It's
Okay.
some formatting
Just so I get it
questions.
accurate in my hearing summary to the board, does what you're about to give us in writing there reflect your verbal testimony? For the most
Yes.
part? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
I didn't want to mischaracterize that. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And you're filling out the sheet now, I see.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to testify? Okay, seeing none. Melody, did you wish to address anything you heard? You need not, but you may. No, okay. Okay, at this time, I will go ahead and we'll get on our way to closing this morning's hearing. You may have gathered my job after the close of the hearing is our office will put together a written summary of today's hearing and have that ready for the board at the time it considers the adoption of the rule. And again, that's scheduled to be at the March 2018 board meeting. With that, we will go ahead and close the hearing. Thanks for coming.